Very pleased to say that we're joined in the studio this morning by the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. Minister, lovely to see you. Let us start, shall we, with the subject of that piece, the tiers system, the review today. Is it possible that we might not actually see any areas moving from Tier 3 to Tier 2, particularly given that the Christmas window is just round the corner as well?
Well, look, first of all, I'm not going to get into, disclosing various tiers because the Secretary of State for Health will be making a statement later on today, this morning, in fact, where he will actually speak about the tiering approach and the various parts of the country when it comes to tiering. But look, the fact of the matter is we are in a health pandemic. And everyone can see, look at how this year has played out, how coronavirus has changed our lives. We're living with this virus. And on that basis, we all have to be very, very cognizant of the steps and measures that we all need to take.
It sounds a little to me like you're suggesting that NHS providers who themselves have said, look, perhaps we should see more areas moving into Tier 3, that you're not entirely opposed to their perspective in this.
I think, we have to be very, very conscientious as to what we're seeing with coronavirus right now. This is serious. You heard from the Prime Minister yesterday and Chris Whitty. I thought their comments were very sobering in terms of the implications for Christmas. But let's not forget, we've seen some fantastic pictures this morning of people having the vaccines in their arm and the rollout of the vaccines too. So, we have to get that balance right when it comes to safeguarding public health.
Certainly plenty to discuss around Christmas, COVID and Brexit. But just on your own brief this morning, the Home Office announcing an extra funding for additional police officers. Tell us a bit about that. I mean, are you entirely confident we're going to get that 20,000 figure?
So we are accelerating our programme for 20,000 more police officers. A year ago, that was our general election, one of our manifesto commitments. We've recruited almost 6,000 this year alone. And I should also emphasise that to recruit 6,000, we've had over 90,000 applications. It's incredible. So we have announced over £15 billion going into policing. The police uplift continues. We're investing in counter-terrorism policing, more in terms of security and investment in police time, equipment and resources. That's effectively what the British public want to see, to reduce crime, and this government is absolutely committed to that.
Huge numbers applying to join the police force, admittedly. I wonder, though, if any of them will have been unaware of the situation of PC Andrew Harper and, of course, his wife. We heard from the Court of Appeal yesterday that those sentences were not unduly lenient. His wife has been pushing for a mandatory life sentence for anyone who results in the death of a police officer. Are you minded to push forward on that?
Yes, so Andrew Harper's death took place last year, and in fact, I'd just become Home Secretary at the time, and it's just a horrendous, absolutely appalling case. And I've met with Andrew's family, I've met with Lizzie, I've met with Andrew's mother as well, a couple of times now. So we are having discussions with them and with Lizzie. There are no words, really, for the horrors as to what has happened. So we are working with the Lord Chancellor, myself and the Lord Chancellor, and staying in touch with Lizzie and Andrew's family as well, because we do want to bring about changes. There are ways in which we have to do this in terms of changing legislation, changing the laws, and as I said, the Lord Chancellor and I are working on that.
It does sound like there is a door open there, potentially.
So we are in absolute conversations, as I said, with Andrew's family, with Lizzie. I've met her recently as well, in recent weeks, and what has happened is just appalling. We are working together. We want to bring about the right kind of changes. We want justice. There's no doubt about that. But also, we want to send a very clear signal. We want these appalling crimes not to happen. And we have to, we want to make the right kind of changes.
Let's turn to Christmas. Could you, just for the sake of a cheeky question from a TV news presenter, could you sum up in 30 seconds exactly what the guidance and the rules are for Christmas, for the Christmas window this year?
Well, the guidance is very clear in terms of meeting with no more than 3 households as your Christmas bubble and over a 5-day period. But I do want to emphasise as well, when you look at what's happening with coronavirus, that's not a maximum. Don't max out for 5 days. Please be conscientious and have a smaller, more local and safer Christmas. We are emphasising that. You heard from the Prime Minister yesterday, those very, very clear messages. We want people to, yes, exercise the right kind of judgment, choice decisions. People have been doing that. People have been brilliant throughout the year. But Christmas, it is a special time. So we're urging people just to be safe, basically, and have a smaller and local Christmas. Don't travel if you don't need to. Don't stay overnight somewhere else where you don't need to. Stay at home effectively with your small support bubble.
What then might be the role of the police in ensuring that people stick broadly to the rules? Now, we're not suggesting that if you have one person more or you're a few hours over the 5-day window that people would be prosecuted. But it does feel like, given that there is a range of options open to people, how long they stay, how far they travel, that there may well be a role for the police.
Well, I think, first of all, I just want to pay tribute to the police, because many of them and our emergency workers will be working over the Christmas period. And, you know, we should always think of them at that time of year as well. But on top of that, of course, the police, down to the guidance that they have as well, and I work with them on the guidance and also on some of the enforcement strategies. Their role is to enforce against egregious breaches.
Sure.
So, you know, when you see the raves, the house parties, anything basically that is in breach of the rules that would effectively lead to the spread of the virus. And that is, as we've seen before, outdoors, public spaces, etc., throughout the year.
Well, the reason I ask, of course, is because in November you said that you didn't see a role for the police in prosecuting, criminalising people for wanting to get home for Christmas. Of course,
yes.
That was before we heard from the Prime Minister about the 5-day window. So it does sound like there may well be a role for the police force.
Egregious breaches only. I've been very clear. You've heard from the Prime Minister and others as well. Household bubbles, support bubbles. We're clear about the numbers there, and there's this very significant distinction between the areas that police, the areas that the police will be taking enforcement action against. We want them to go after many of the egregious breaches, and we should remember we've seen a lot of them. The fixed penalty notice fines, how they've been issued, where people have been having mass gatherings and really actually hothousing the virus and trying, spreading the virus as well, putting public health at risk.
Just in terms of the messaging, do you feel that it is clear enough? There is a degree of confusion from some people. There are some public health experts who say perhaps the government should be a little bit more forceful in the direction that it is telling the country to take.
I don't think that's right, primarily because we have been living with coronavirus throughout this year. The British public are incredibly sensible in terms of exercising their own judgment. People are wearing face coverings. Back in March, people were not wearing face coverings. There is more social distancing. People are much more conscientious. And I think it's right that that people exercise their judgment. They want to take care of their loved ones, their nearest and dearest. We want to protect each other. That is a sensible thing to do. And there is that distinction, I think, as we go into Christmas, we want everyone to have a wonderful Christmas. We really do. But in a smaller, safer way, a localised way. And I think the public understand that.
It does rather feel that from the start of the week when people were going, all right, fine to go home, today we've got another government minister and a senior one at that saying, do you know what, guys, perhaps it might be best not to travel. I mean, certainly, if you look at the situation in Scotland, it would not be advisable for me to travel from London to Scotland for Christmas. Yes,
well, I think we have to make decisions. I mean, we would not advise people to travel, certainly from, low tier, high tier into low tiers as well. That would clearly put coronavirus at risk in terms of spreading the virus. People really, and would urge them to exercise their judgment and decision in the right way.
I want to talk briefly about Brexit and, of course, the impact that no deal might have on your department. We've heard from a variety of people, including the chairman of the National Police Chiefs Council, that no deal would have a major operational impact on fighting terrorism. What stopgaps have you put in place? What additional measures have you taken, agreements, to ensure that, come January the 1st, if we don't have a deal, we're not going to be more open to the threat of terrorism?
First of all, we have to distinguish between this language of no deal. Sure. We're actually in negotiations right now to secure a free trade agreement for the United Kingdom collectively as a whole. We've left the EU, of course. We have left the EU, and we've seen many changes this year. Throughout the year, across government, and specifically in my department, I mean, look, we're investing in law enforcement. We have recently announced a new counter-terrorism operations centre. We have now a new international crime coordination centre. When it comes to technology platforms, we're sharing information. We've brought in new laws, basically, such as extradition, arrest warrants, legislation.
But as things stand, we don't have the new security deal just yet, do we? So Lord Ricketts, when he made in his assessment, that we will all be less safe without it.
That's not true at all. Okay. Britain is a safe country. We will always be a safe country. And we have maintained that throughout the last 4 years through all the EU negotiations. And when you look at our security and intelligence tools, we are world-class. We're best in the world, which is why we have
do we need the Europeans? We don't need the cooperation.
Well, actually, a couple of things. First of all, we have left the EU, and with that, we've left some EU, naturally we'll be leaving EU tools. We work already bilaterally and through multilateral organisations when it comes to some of the security and intelligence tools, Interpol, for example, but also our Five Eyes intelligence and security partners. That is ongoing, that always has been. And on top of that, our security tools are advancing constantly. I've already mentioned the new Counter-Terrorism Operations Centre. We have a new International Crime Coordination Centre that has been established. Everybody benefits from that. It's not just the European Union. Our other non-EU partners do as well. And so we're constantly evolving. So it's wrong, it's really wrong, if I may say so, to just automatically say EU tools just sort of protect us and they're absolutely
I'm just gently suggesting that Lord Ricketts knows more than I do.
Well, I think we have to look at it within the totality. And of course, all our security and intelligence partners, I speak to them every single day. I work with them every single day. We work as one unit collectively. And even when you look at our new CT Operations Centre, that's all our policing partners and our intelligence partners and CT policing as well, coming together to keep this country safe. And also, this is something that our international counterparts want to work with us on.
Is there a role? Of course, there's been an awful lot of talk about, patrolling the Channel, keeping our territorial waters for the purposes of fishing. Is there a role for Border Force Border Agency in that particular role? We know that they're looking for people coming across the Channel illegally, but is there a role for them, given that they've got some boats, to be out there policing?
Well, it's not just Border Force. We work with maritime policing as well. So you asked about part of our end of transition readiness and preparedness. We have set up a lot more. We have a 24/7 Borders Operations Centre now. And that isn't just Border Force, that is maritime policing. That's also other areas of security and intelligence that comes together. So this is a classic example in terms of how we have evolved, how we've developed our systems as we go into the end of transitions, but also how we will be kept safe post the end of transition, whether we get that free trade agreement or not. But this is all part of our independence, our sovereignty and protecting UK territorial waters.
Are we going to be using Border Force to patrol, to police fishing?
We use Border Force, we use all sorts of naval assets, we use maritime police and maritime security. It's not just Border Force, there is a whole intelligence platform that underpins that.
I'm going to be really cheeky because I know your special advisor will be wanting you to move very quickly, but what are you going to do for Christmas? How will you be working and how will you limit it?
Well, first of all, I'll be on call throughout Christmas, as everybody will expect me to be. I will also be spending some time with our frontline police officers on Christmas Day because obviously they are working to keep us all safe, and I think it's important to, pay credit to them. And other than that, I'll be within my very, very tight and small family bubble.
Yep, excellent. Minister, good to see you this morning.
Well, have
Thanks for
a
being
good
with us.
Christmas.
You too.